Yeah, and it's funny, like I built across Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum.
Mm.
And, you know, obviously when I was at Ripple, I was doing like far more work. I don't know if you know David Schwartz, but I like co-authored another protocol with him when I was there. I was like deep in the Ripple
Wow.
ecosystem. Honestly, I like still am. I know a lot of the people who are more in like leadership positions there, and I touch base pretty regularly.
This episode is brought to you by BitGo, which is a top-tier crypto custodian that has been in the industry since 2013. It's headed up by Mike Belshew, who's a Web 1.0 and 2.0 legend. BitGo provides incredible services in addition to custody. They allow you to manage your tokens, get all types of liquidity, and much more. And some of the companies that use BitGo include Bitstamp Exchange, SWE, the token project, Pantera Capital, that's Dan Moorhead, as well as 21 Shares, which issues Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Some of the great services that BitGo provides includes wallet services, which is secure, trusted, scalable wallet solutions. Prime services, which allows you to get seamless access to liquidity and capital. It also allows you to list, manage, and grow your ecosystem. And they have what's called the Go Network, which is a secure real-time global settlement. Recently, BitGo launched a retail platform that allows you to trade, stake, and of course, custody your crypto assets. And this is a great solution because it provides you with top tier crypto security, and security is, of course, a big factor in investing in crypto. And BitGo is offering an incredible incentive as they launch this platform where you can get a chance to win Bitcoin. They're giving away at least one Bitcoin every quarter. So if you sign up and have funds on the platform through the last day of each quarter, starting December 31st, 2024, you can be eligible to win some free Bitcoin here. So if you'd like to learn more about BitGo, go to bitgo.com. Link will be in the description. Hey, everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and my guest today is Austin King, who's the co founder of Omni Network and the CEO of Omni Labs. Austin, great to have you on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Austin, excited to chat with you because you and the folks at Omni are trying to solve the fragmentation issue that is caused by rollups on the Ethereum blockchain. So lots of questions about what you guys are doing, but let's start with your background. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and what's your professional background.
Yeah, so I grew up in Indiana originally. I've hopped around a decent amount since then. So I grew up in Indiana. I got into Harvard, so I was living in Boston for like 4 years. Then I moved to San Francisco. Then I was nomadic for a couple of years, and now I live in New York for the past 3 years. But New York's home now at this point. I love living in New York. Our office is here where I'm at right now. Yeah, I really love New York. My professional background, I've always been in crypto. So when I was studying computer science in university, I really fell down the like rabbit hole. And I always planned to build a company after I graduated. So during my junior summer, I was like, I'm building a crypto startup. I don't know what it's going to do, but I am going to build a crypto startup. And so most of my senior year, I was exploring what I was going to build. And so this led to my first company that I ran from 2017 to 2020. I sold that to Ripple, worked at Ripple for a year so I could vest. And then, yeah, I started Omni after that. And so Omni's been in progress for about like 3.5 years now. So that's like a pretty rapid fire overview of like, where am I from? What's my like professional background?
What was the company you built and sold to Ripple?
So it was called Strata Labs, but it built a network called the Interledger Network, which in many ways, honestly, was like a technical predecessor to Omni. So I kind of took like a first lap at this already in the like 2018 to 2020 era. But it's cool to see like how much the technology has advanced since then. And like we can do so much more with it now. So yeah, it's interesting. Like in many ways, like I've actually utilized a lot of learnings from my first company to help us scale up Omni.
And were there any major learnings from a company like Ripple? Obviously, it's pretty high profile in the crypto industry to have an asset now, XRP. I think it's like in the top four. They've had the
Yeah.
SEC lawsuit, a lot of high profile things.
hmm Yeah, honestly, a lot of learning lessons for sure. I mean, Ripple's hundreds of people. When I was there, I think it was 400 people. Now I think it's around 1,000 people. But for me, because I built a company right after school, I didn't like join Facebook like a lot of my friends or something. So I didn't have the experience of being at like a bigger corporation. Um, but yeah, getting deeper into the XRP ecosystem and kind of like understanding how the community thinks about XRP and like Ripple as an entity and the opportunity that Ripple has as a larger organization, especially with like a ton of capital firepower. It was cool to kind of like jump straight from just being a few people at a small startup to a much bigger corporation with like a massive asset and like huge firepower to make things happen from the like talent perspective and the capital perspective. And then switching back into it and like building another company. Yeah, a ton of like really interesting experiences there.
Mm. You may have hinted on this or touched a bit on it, but what was your first encounter with Bitcoin or blockchain or ETH or whatever it may be?
Mhm.
And what was your aha moment? When did it click for you?
Yeah, honestly, it clicked pretty soon after I got into it. So it was 2017. This was before the ICO era, where I just like I had a job at Microsoft, but for whatever reason, my boss just it was an internship. He just told me that the main priority was that I had a good summer and not that I like did anything. And so he told me that like, yeah, just make sure you like enjoy the summer. So I was like, okay. And I spent the entire summer learning about crypto. And so yeah, I didn't really do anything for Microsoft. I don't know why they paid me, but yeah, I dove deep into the Ethereum ecosystem and I started like mining Ethereum, buying it, and I started programming or like teaching myself how to program in Solidity. And honestly, it clicked pretty quickly. So it's kind of strange. My first exposure wasn't Bitcoin; it was actually Ethereum. But the thing that really clicked for me was I built what we would probably call a DAO today. It was a system where a bunch of different people could like vote on what this like smart contract does. And to me, it just kind of clicked. It was like, oh, we can run governments on this thing. Like we're seeing like a very infantile, like toy version of what this will become, but it is a way for people to like socially coordinate across the world. It doesn't matter like where you are. And so I don't know for whatever reason, like my values, like my background, this like really clicked with me. Like, wow, this is like a super empowering tool just for anybody across the world. So I was pretty sold once it like clicked. Once I first started diving into like programming smart contracts, like, wow, these are going to be super impactful systems for just people everywhere.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. You were really ahead of the curve there, as you mentioned. It's kind of like DAOs, and DAOs we see are growing in adoption, and some local governments, I believe, are building DAOs. I think Wyoming, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating, that thought that the future of government and people participating and maybe keeping their government accountable could be through these DAO models, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, when I would like tell people that, I went back to Harvard after this and I would tell people like, hey, this is incredible. Like, we're going to run governments on this. They're like, you're insane. Like that, like, what are you talking about? That's a ridiculous thing to say. And obviously we're still like Wyoming has published a framework for legally recognizing DAOs at this point. So we have made tremendous progress. But still, I think we're very early in the journey of crypto at large. There's a ton of like huge opportunities for growth that I still see. So yeah, I still think it has a lot to like prove, but I am very like grateful that we've made a ton of progress since 2017.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk Omni. Give us an overview of Omni, what you guys are trying to do, what's your mission?
Yep, cool. So the original reason we built Omni was actually because we built a DeFi protocol on Ethereum in the first place. So we built this DeFi protocol. It went really well. We hit 50 mil TVL in like 2 days after launching. And this was earlier in the Ethereum ecosystem. It was like 2021. So there weren't really any large scale rollups out there. It was like Arbitrum and Optimism had just recently deployed. And you kind of had to be more deep into the research to understand that like this roll-up stuff is the future of Ethereum. If there is no roll-ups for the future, there is no Ethereum. Like this thing's just not going to work compared to like these alternative networks. And so effectively what we were trying to do actually was scale it so that we could bring our own DeFi protocol across these different roll-ups. We still wanted to access all the users and liquidity from the entire Ethereum ecosystem. So we were trying to solve this problem for ourselves. In the process of this, though, we were talking with other teams, and basically any other team that saw success on Ethereum L1 was trying to like think about how they don't get sidelined in the process as L2s become like more prevalent. So it became like pretty clear to us like, Oh, okay. Any team that has seen success on L1 is thinking about this. And this is not a problem that just we are facing. It's a problem everybody is facing. So this is going to be a core problem for the future of the Ethereum ecosystem. So that's really where it came from. The North Star was like, make it super easy for people to build for all of the users in the Ethereum ecosystem. I think where we're going at large, though, is kind of like a few steps past that. That's, we've grown a lot since then. And where I think the entire crypto industry at large is going is we're kind of like stepping to a point where we're gonna be able to onboard far more users because we're lowering the technical complexity to accessing blockchains. Today it's a mess. You have to think about wrapped assets, gas tokens, bridging different chains and stuff. It's like people, those of us in the space, we're like, oh, we know that you shouldn't use like this version of wrapped USDC because it's actually this. Like that's because we're deep and we're like degens and stuff and we get it. But onboarding more users, like it's crazy to actually expect people to like think about all those different things. And so where we're going at large, this really started with like abstracting away the reality of like different rollups. But directionally, where it's going to go is like accessing crypto is going to look just like using Web 2. It's going to look like just using a website. You're not going to have to think about seed phrases, gas, or chains, or any of that. You're just going to like kind of accumulate assets as you navigate the web. So directionally, that's where we're going as a company, and that's where I'm super excited about.
I want to make sure we break this down for the folks who are new to the technology and asset class. So when we talk about rollups, we're talking about layer twos on Ethereum, right? Like your Arbitrum and all these others, right?
Yeah, correct.
And you guys are helping to bridge all of those together to make it easy for folks to build on Ethereum or any of those respective rollups.
Yeah, that's correct. So we created like scaling solutions where it's kind of like you build computers on top of the computer. Like instead of just Ethereum L1, you have like Optimism, Arbitrum, Base, and you have these other like individual scaling networks. The difficulty though is that now people have to think about all those different computers, Arbitrum, Optimism, Base. They have different versions of assets. They have like different gas tokens and stuff. So what we're really focused on in the short term here is making it so that people don't have to think about that. But where that really positions us to like excel in the long term here is taking that one step further and making it so that people don't have to think about chains at all or any of the complexities associated with this.
Mm. So let's walk through a mock example. Let's say I want to build some NFTs, right?
Mhm.
And I want to do it on ETH, but I'm going to go through Omni. What's that process like? And is the NFT going to sit on all the respective rollups?
Yeah. So you as a developer, the really cool thing is you can decide if you want it on all these different rollups, you can do that. You don't need to though. But with Omni, there's like a decoupling where you can still source like, let's say people have to pay 1 ETH to get one of your NFTs. They can do that on Base, Optimism, Arbitrum, even if your NFT project is only deployed on ETH-L1. So it kind of like you can do whatever you want as a developer. You can build your application the way that you want to, but that doesn't force the complexity onto the users. The users like you can go get the users who have ETH on Optimism. Same thing with Arbitrum. They don't need to think about the fact that the application is technically not on that same role. In many ways, like honestly, the best way to think about this is when you go to google.com, do you think about the fact that you might have just hit a server that is running in California and I might hit a server that's running in Asia? No, we like don't think about that. Google.com is powered by thousands of computers behind the scenes, but we're not forced to think about that like in the weeds technical reality because it's abstracted away. That's where crypto is going in the same way.
I've been thinking a lot about this. And you mentioned it earlier, the Web 2 interface, but Web 3 technology behind it. And
Mhm.
um, we need that so badly to bring in like the next billion people or hit a
Yeah.
billion users because there's a lot of friction, a lot of people scared of the seed phrase item. So I love the idea and I love the mission you guys are on to solve that. So definitely makes sense. Um, Now, once again, I want to make sure I break this down for people who it's a new concept to them. So, are you guys a layer one blockchain or a layer three blockchain, if that makes sense? How do you guys fit
Yeah,
in this?
that's the question. Yeah. Which layer is it? Yeah. So it is a chain. It is the way that the Omni network runs is it is a chain. Is it a chain like the Stay network, though? Are we trying to build up our own DeFi ecosystem on the Omni chain itself? No, that's not what we're trying to do. Omni, in many ways, aggregates these other smart contract platforms where these applications are deployed. So, in many ways, you can think about it as like an orchestration, aggregation layer, whatever you want to call it. Like at a literal technical level, yes, it is a chain, but it is not like an all L1. It was specifically designed so that people didn't have to think about all L1s. They just like wanted to use an application, they can use the application, and they don't have to think about where that application is running. But yes, it is technically it's an L1 chain. Yes.
Okay. And then I noticed you guys have a token called Omni. Tell us a bit about the tokenomics around that.
Yeah. So it's a pretty unique model because downstream of this fact that we're not trying to build like an all L1 ecosystem on our chain, the business model of the network itself, every network has like a model for like pulling in fees, right? A lot of these are mostly just like what happens on the chain itself. Omni is unique in the sense that, like, yes, you can transact on Omni's chain itself, and a lot of these like intermediaries that like coordinate activity across these different chains do that. But the additional way that it can accrue fees is by passing messages across all these different networks. So it kind of has like an additional line and like opportunity to accrue fees compared to like other chains that are out there on the market.
Mm. And then how are you facilitating growth, like getting developers to come participate and people to build on Omni?
Mhm. Yeah, honestly, the answer to this one's pretty simple. I've been in the space for like 7 years at this point. I know a lot of the biggest projects. And so we're kind of just like, we kind of have a pretty deep network to any team that we want to work with. Like we have an open conversation with them. We don't really have to market to like pull in developers because all the teams that are like building the highest leverage projects, like we just know them at this point. And if we don't know them, we're like pretty good at like being nimble and getting in touch with them pretty quickly.
Yeah, and to your point, the Ethereum ecosystem and network, there's a ton of building happening. I mean, you just see enterprise folks like even BlackRock, right, issuing their
Mhm.
first tokenized fund on Ethereum. There's so much happening. Do you envision that Ethereum will be able to maintain this status as king of the hill when it comes to smart contract blockchains?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a great question. I don't know the answer. I think Solana is doing incredible work. But at large, honestly, I think where things are going is people will care less about specific chains. I think they're actually going to become far more attached to like applications at large. And those applications downstream are just going to use whatever smart contract development platform best fits their needs. So I think over the long term here, economic network effects, like liquidity network effects and stuff will fade away because everything will move so seamlessly across these chains that like those barriers will effectively be broken down. If I had to bet on one horse right now, yeah, it would be Ethereum. But it's honestly very healthy, and I am excited to see that the Solana ecosystem, for example, has pulled in like so much attention. And then there are also kind of more like dark horses at this point, like XRP. They have captured a ton of the kind of more traditional mind share there. So there are like these more younger, more creative, like playful applications being built on Solana and Ethereum. But if you're thinking more about these like BlackRock types, there are these institutions like Ripple that have been around for a very long time and have like deep relationships with all these entities. And I think that is like a huge point of leverage that they have.
It's funny. There's an interesting backstory, which I'm sure you know about, with Vitalik and Ripple. And Ripple, I think back in the day, they were working on Codius for the XRP ledger, which would have enabled
Yeah,
smart contracts, but they didn't
yeah,
go
yeah.
that direction. And ETH,
Mhm,
obviously boomed with the smart contract technology and the ability to do a
mhm.
lot of great things. So it's fascinating if they had went, the folks at Ripple had went in a different direction, what the world might have looked like in the crypto space.
Yeah, you know some deep lore, man. So Codius actually, like my first company built the Interledger network.
Mhm.
Codius was an original idea for like smart contracts. And so Stefan Thomas was one of the like Ripple's old CTO who was like a mentor of mine in my first company.
Wow.
I worked super close with him in my first company.
I interviewed him a couple of times, so it's pretty cool
Oh
to.
yeah. So they had the idea for Codius and like, okay, we don't want to bind this tightly to XRP ledger. We should create some like currency neutral way to pay for smart contracts. And that was Interledger. So that actually was like the network that I built that was like originally designed so that it could power this smart contract platform, Codius. But when I built Interledger, we actually ended up tying together like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the XRP ledger. So yeah, some deep lore, man. That's a while back.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And you just in hindsight you look at it and you're like, wow, I wonder if they went the other way, well, how things would have changed. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. And going back to the Solana Ethereum comparison, we're seeing a lot of adoption, maybe more on the retail side for Solana. It's quick and it does what it needs to for retail and meme coins and things like that.
Yeah.
But I see a ton of enterprise adoption on Ethereum, which I think the enterprises, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they want the security and maybe the pedigree that Ethereum has.
hmm Yeah, and I think it's also anytime you're looking at these more larger like enterprises, takes a long time to get these people moving. And also, above all else, they seek stability. And Solana has done great work. I honestly have immense respect for the engineering work that has been done in Solana. But last cycle, it was like a meme that it would break every 3 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you're BlackRock, you can't have something that breaks every 3 weeks. And I actually don't remember the last time that Solana like halted as a chain. I think maybe it happened like 6 months ago, but like I don't know. I feel like it was like at least a year before that. But Ethereum, I don't think it has ever halted. I don't think it ever has had like a freeze like that. So yeah, they seek stability above all else, and so that is definitely a competitive advantage.
Do you think the Ethereum move from proof of work to proof of stake was the right strategy and it's a better off now?
That is honestly, I would have probably 9 months ago. I would have been like, obviously, it's great, but in hindsight, I think proof of stake was probably the move for Ethereum.
Mhm.
But I do find myself finding like a beauty in Bitcoin. I've always loved Bitcoin. And just the simplicity of like how it works compared to these more complex mechanisms. There is like niceness in the like static nature of Bitcoin. And so I think it was the right move for Ethereum. But I do love Bitcoin. I personally like I buy Bitcoin every week. I love Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's funny. I have the same sentiment because at first I looked at Bitcoin and I looked at ETH and XRP and I was like, man, what does Bitcoin do? But then over the years, as it became more educated and understand the dynamics of blockchains
Yeah,
and
it's like
understand the beauty, right? Yeah, the full circle, because it's so decentralized and they try to stop it, they try to ban it, and then the miners move. And there's something just amazing about that you can't
mhm.
kill it. And
Yeah.
it's that hard money, right? And
Mhm.
that's its major use case, and in line with the Bitcoin white paper and the ethos of why it was created. So I really appreciate now that as I understand how the economy works and the world works and why Bitcoin is the lead horse.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, like I built across Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum.
Mm.
And obviously when I was at Ripple, I was doing like far more work. Like I don't know if you know David Schwartz, but I like co-authored another protocol with him when I was there. I was like deep in the Ripple
Wow.
ecosystem. Honestly, I like still am. I know a lot of the like people who are more in like leadership positions there, and I touch base pretty regularly. Like I like the Ripple squad. I think they get a lot of hate, and especially from the Ethereum community. So I'm kind of like in between worlds here because I love the Ethereum community as well. But then there's like Bitcoin that I leaned away from for a while because I was like, you can't build. You get like I want to like build and contribute to this, and it's hard for me to do that on Bitcoin. I like integrated Bitcoin's Lightning Network into the Interledger protocol. Like I authored like that part of the protocol, for example. So I like got pretty deep with Lightning Network. This was all back in like 2017 to 2020 era, but yeah, I've been across these different communities over time, and it's funny because they all tend to like hate each other sometimes. But I respect them all for
Right.
like quite different reasons, but they all have like some really nice properties to them.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like, I appreciate the uniqueness of each of these blockchains and what they do. But the human nature element comes in because of value in the tokens. So they
Yeah, yeah.
fight each other. You think, oh, if you promote this one, it's taking something away or value or something or
Mhm.
liquidity. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's funny to watch that, and I'm self-aware to know that. Hey man, I appreciate Bitcoin. I appreciate Ethereum. I appreciate the XRP ledger because I see the pros and cons of each.
Yeah. And it's funny, I like for a while I posted like very heavy ETH research because of the work that Omni's doing. But like long term where Omni is going, and this is kind of why I was saying like talking more about how you're just gonna go to websites and do things, you're not gonna think about chains. Like the goal here really is create an abstraction layer for the entire crypto economy so that like you don't have to think about any chains. It's not going to just be rollups. It'll be like Solana, XRP and stuff. Like you'll be able to like use all these different platforms. So you won't have to think about it. So that's like really the way that I'm looking at the world right now. It's just like uh, they all have their purpose. They all have their purpose. Ripple is going to be heads down trying to like land these banks and fintechs, and I am glad that they are there driving that. Ethereum, they have this like stability that they can offer there, and that's like fantastic. But the Ethereum Foundation is not like out there hunting like cross-border payments companies to like build on it. So they're all bringing collectively like value into the on-chain economy, which ultimately is what I care about. Just like open permissionless networks for people to engage in commerce with each other. That's really like what matters to me.
Absolutely. You mentioned, the expansion of Omni. Are you planning to do anything for Bitcoin from a scaling standpoint?
I would love to do something for Bitcoin. Yeah, so like this will be, we're exploring alt VMs right now. There's like some work being done on this. Um, with Bitcoin though, it's a bit more difficult because honestly, the space is still learning. A lot of these Bitcoin L2s are just multi-sigs right now. They're not actually like inheriting Bitcoin's properties in many ways, like if any. There are a couple that I have seen though that do seem more promising. And so if we can get to a point where these are actually like Bitcoin L2s and not multi-sigs branded as like riding the Bitcoin wave, I would love to see that. If we can like contribute to a greater Bitcoin economy, I'm all for that. That would be super cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people are trying different things, Lightning Network and all these things. So
Mhm.
that would be awesome if we can get some better solutions for Bitcoin to scale. Um, who are some of your investors? I know Pantera Capital is one. Tell us a bit about some of the other folks.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a range here. So we were pretty intentional about getting a range of investors. So on one end, Pantera was our lead, and they're like, obviously they were the first to make like an American like Bitcoin fund, which they had a hilarious email about. They sent it out recently. They're like, cool, the Bitcoin fund is officially up 1,000x. Like we, like
Wow.
Jesus, man, that's nuts. But they're like the native OGs, like have a ton of capital, can like really swing. So there are leads. On the other side of that, though, the second biggest like venture capital holder of the Omni network is Two Sigma Ventures. So Two Sigma is like much closer to this like BlackRock type, where it's like this is like a big institution in the U.S. Like this is like a massive trading firm that has like a very big traditional footprint, and so we really wanted to like balance that out. Like, cool, let's get the crypto natives, but let's also make sure that we have a foot in the door into the like existing traditional financial system. And then totally on the other side of that, like Chris Larson, the founder of Ripple, is on Omni's cap table as well. Because it's like, cool, there is like surface area to like work collaboratively here. So yeah, I was pretty intentional in designing like a diversified cap table for Omni so that we have easy ways to kind of like break into these different growth verticals.
Hmm. And what's on your roadmap as we head into 2025?
Yeah, 2025 is going to be a fun year. We'll see what happens with the market. At minimum, it'll be crazy. I can guarantee that. I can't guarantee whether it'll be crazy going up or down for like Bitcoin, the industry at large, but it'll be crazy. Where we're at from a product perspective, though. So, the mainnet, December 17th. I don't know when we're going to drop this, but before or after that, but it'll be released on December 17th. So, super excited for that date. Like, the core foundation of Omni network will be out there, and like you'll be able to communicate data across these Ethereum rollups. Where we're going though throughout 2025, Q1, Q2, we're going to be stepping deeper into this like abstraction for just like using apps in the Ethereum ecosystem. Kind of the first step in this is like you'll be able to use an application that's on ETH1, even if your funds are on Optimism, or like you'll be able to use an app on Arbitrum, even if your funds are on Base. And you won't have to think about this. So that's kind of like the first step in this like abstraction idea that I'm talking about. In the latter half of 2025, though, what we're going to be really focused on is obviously leaning further into this abstraction idea, but also expanding surface area. So this is more kind of like the XRP, the Bitcoin, the Solana type of like expanding like access to the entire on-chain economy, so that you can have the similar experience where like it doesn't matter where your money is held, you can just use apps that are everywhere, and it just kind of happens without you needing to think about it at all.
Oh, that's exciting. I love it. We're gonna have to have you back on to talk about all those things. So
Yeah,
we'll do
gladly.
an in-person
Yeah,
interview.
yeah. Maybe we can do it here in the office.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Great. I want to get your perspective on the markets overall. Not necessarily price predictions, but the growth and the adoption we've seen. We kind of touched a bit on it before, but you got ETFs being issued by Wall Street firms, tokenization happening by some of these big firms like BlackRock. Crypto has become mainstream with politics, and we got a pro crypto president and
Yeah,
Congress.
yeah.
It's amazing. What are your thoughts on all these things?
hmm I honestly, to answer this, maybe I'll answer it as like my experience as a builder in America. And so I don't think people understood at large how aggressive the US stance was towards crypto builders. So when Tyler, my co-founder, and I decided to build this company, we had a very serious conversation where it's like, look, we might need to leave America if the US decides it hates crypto to like a certain degree that we just like can't build here. And we're both like fanatically like we're gonna make this like happen. So we're like, cool, if we need to leave America, we'll leave America. That just is what it is. But now honestly I feel it like so deeply because I'm very American. Like I grew up here. I love living in America. I'm honestly so grateful to be an American. I've definitely drank like a decent amount of the American like Kool-Aid, whatever, but like I am like genuinely very grateful to be American. Now that Trump is going to become president, Gary Gensler is stepping down. I feel like I can just like vocalize like, hey, I build in crypto and I work in New York City. Like, and I can say that without like concerns about like the government, like having some opinion, like, like the government is going to embrace crypto. So that the fact that the US government, the largest economy in the world, is embracing this technology is honestly unbelievably bullish. It is, in all the years that I've been in crypto, never have I seen anything that like exciting for the industry at large. And so this is positive both for the rate of technological development. Things are going to speed up here. It's also positive for the rate of like institutional capital flowing into it. And the real outlier here, this is like, I think this is, I don't want to say it's like underpriced, but I think it's something that people don't really understand the implications of. But if the US starts to accumulate a national like strategic reserve of Bitcoin, it is going to set off an arms race for the accumulation of BTC across the entire world. Like if you see the issuer of the reserve currency start to dump their own currency to accumulate some internet coin, you are obviously going to pick up that internet coin as well because they're the issuer of the reserve currency. And if they believe they should sell for this coin, you are going to do the same thing. And so obviously that's like a crazy outcome. And I could have never imagined that when I first got involved in crypto, but here we are, like 7, 8 years later, it's like, wow, like he's talking about it. Some might just like dump some USD for Bitcoin. Like he might do it. And if that happens, I think, structurally the game will change, like in order of magnitude here. Like we will really never go back to where we're at right now if governments start accumulating Bitcoin in a way that's like kicked off by the US. This is already happening with like El Salvador, Bhutan. China has a giant Bitcoin reserve as well. But if the US starts actively buying Bitcoin, honestly, like not financial advice, but like that's going to be insane.
Yeah, it's amazing that this dialogue, there's even a bill on the table that this is
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, same thing. I wouldn't have believed you if you told me even a year ago that this would have been
Yeah.
the case.
Definitely a year ago. I'd be like, what do you mean? The government hates crypto. There's no way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I look at what's happening with the ETFs and BlackRock, and their accumulation is going to pass Satoshi, BlackRock is putting a lot of their clients' money into this thing, and they're accumulating at such a rapid pace. It almost seems, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but BlackRock is
Yeah.
working with the government in many ways as the world's wealthiest asset manager. Even after 2008, they push certain narratives. So if they're all in on Bitcoin and you have this bill, it's kind of like the writings on the wall. Maybe it doesn't happen this cycle, but maybe the next cycle, but it's coming, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually was speaking on something earlier today, and they were asking me like, "Hey, what was it like building in like 2017, 2018? Like, a lot of people joined in like 2021 era, but like we don't chat as much with people who were around and like actively building at that time." And the thing is, at that time, it was like maybe this dies. Like it's not locked in that crypto is like going to really succeed. But I feel like at this point, it's like like we're locked in. Like the future is going to be crazy. We're going to have these like open financial networks, and there are different paths here. Some are like a path of like greater acceleration and adoption than others. But at this point, I feel like it's just like very clear. Like this is not going away. Human society is accepting digital assets, and the future is like open, permissionless global economy, or like an open, permissionless platform for the global economy, which to me is just like beautiful. Like that's why I got involved. Like people deserve to be able to like engage in commerce with whoever they want. Like we deserve that. As just like people, we don't need governments or banks to like tell us who we can work with. So I don't know. I'm loving where we're at right now. I'm super excited for where we're going.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people about what the future looks like, and we're only going to get more digital. And the generation that's coming up now and future generations, they're not going to come up in a analog world. It's going to be digital, and they're going to
Yeah.
transact in digital, their profiles, their life, and so forth. And look, there's maybe a bit of a dystopian aspect to that, but this is the evolution, I guess, of civilization and blockchains. And I've been telling people we're living in the fourth industrial revolutions: blockchain, crypto, AI, robotics, and,
Yeah.
and all these different things. It's fascinating.
It's wild. And I think one thing that I really did not factor into like growth projections was AI. We now have rich AIs. That's what's hit when I explain my like to my hometown friends what's one of the cool things happening in crypto right now. I'm like, so people made AIs and they have crypto wallets and they're rich now and they tweet at people and like explaining it that way instead of talking about like agents and stuff. Like they just get like, what do you, damn, like AIs are rich. I'm like, yes, dude. And they talk to people on Twitter. It's crazy. But I think like AI is going to get to a point where you were talking about having a kid. Like I'm excited for like the opportunity to have a kid when like it can have an AI tutor that like will help it like grow and like learn at a faster rate than like we had the opportunity to. So I don't know. I'm obviously like very much a techno optimist and super excited for like how technology can like better human lives. But I mean, this stuff is objectively insane. The internet was an unbelievable thing that we created as a society, but having like native digital assets and AI, like things are gonna things are gonna get way weirder, way quicker than they did previously.
Yeah, it's it's like scary, but it's also exciting at the same time because
Mhm.
I'm like you, I'm passionate about tech, and I'm just curious to see how this changes our lives. And I'm an optimist, so I look at it from the positive light. But well, I guess as humans, we figure it out. It's ebbs and flows throughout human civilization and the history of it. And sometimes things may go the wrong direction, but then we course correct. So I'm curious to, like you, I'm thinking like, what can I do with my daughter? She's 7 now, and with AI and get her started ahead of time. Not
Mhm.
to be too immersed, but just get ahead of the curve because I see the
Yeah.
direction we're headed in.
Yeah. Totally. I would be thinking the same thing if I had a kid right now.
I did want to ask you about Ripple's stablecoin RLUSD and the growing
Mhm.
stablecoin market. Stablecoins are one of the killer use cases or apps of blockchain. What are your thoughts on that?
Mhm. Yeah, bullish. I actually let me see if she emailed me back yet, but I don't know if many people I don't know how public Monica is these days. But Monica is the president of Ripple, and I used
Yeah.
to work with her. And I emailed her today, like, hey, let's cook on RLUSD. Let's let's see if we can expand that throughout the rest of the on-chain economy. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is an example of kind of what I was talking about with Ripple's ties to existing like fintechs, banks, institutions out there. Yeah, I'm really excited for them. They just have the relationships there. Like they have been building this company. Like I think a lot of people don't know it's been around since like 2013. Like
Right.
it's been around like longer than Ethereum. You know, it's been a super long time that they've been pushing on this, and they have like offices throughout the world and stuff. And they're like pretty deeply in bed with the existing financial system. So RLUSD as like a technology, I'm super excited to see them have this like asset that they can drive adoption of. For a long time, even when I worked back at Ripple, I was like, this makes sense to have a stable coin. Like honestly, I think we should launch a stable coin on top of this. And seeing now that they're at a point where it's like, cool, this thing is going to happen. I think there's a ton of synergies with their existing like partnerships and product adoption. But on top of that, and this is more my Omni brain thinking, but like there's stuff like Omni that can be used to expand RLUSD throughout the rest of the on-chain economy. So yeah, this is something I'm watching like pretty closely, and I'm like chatting with Ripple people about.
Well, Austin, like I said, we're gonna have to do another interview
Yeah.
for sure. Maybe come Q1 or Q2, we'll plan it because I love what you guys are doing, and I mean your background is incredible, and the fact that you worked on Interledger and all these things is fascinating, and Bitcoin, and now you're building here with Ethereum. It's pretty cool. I got some wrap up questions here for you. First is if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
Um, I think metaverse. I really like what's this called? Solar punk energy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I like sci-fi glass, but like water and like overflowing greenery. Like that if I could build myself a home, it would be a lot of like hyper modern glass, but then like flowing water and like greenery. So if I can get a world like that, that's that's where I want to go in the metaverse.
Nice. Rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Uh, it's Thai food, actually. I almost said pizza, but it's definitely Thai food.
Favorite musician or band?
Uh, Honestly, Boris Brejcha. He's a house artist. I might even be saying his last name wrong, but he's phenomenal.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? This one's more of kind of a niche one. I don't even think it's like objectively a great movie, but I love it. It's called Mr. Nobody. It's. Have you heard of this thing?
I haven't, but I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's a very trippy movie. It's about a kid who like his parents get divorced, and you see one version of him go with his dad and one version go with his mom, but his life keeps forking. So by the end, you're seeing like 60 versions of him. I don't know. Very trippy movie. I love it. Not that many people know it though.
Fascinating. I'll check that out. Favorite book?
I love the Dune series, but actually, my this is we're talking crypto, so The Ascent of Money. That is a book that fundamentally changed the way that I think about what money is in human society, and it really helped me understand like the impact of the systems we're building.
And when you're not working at Omni, what are you doing for fun?
Honestly, man, I work a lot, so I don't have a ton. I used to surf a lot though. Before I moved to New York, surfing was like how I would relax. So I'll go with surfing.
Mm. Austin, I love what you guys are doing. Like I said, we'll have to have you back on, but thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you so much for having me on.